Hey, you ever get that nagging feeling when you're scrolling through a sea of TV options and wonder if you're about to drop a few $100 on something that'll just sit there looking great but never actually fit your living room routine? I've been there trying to picture a new screen on the wall, worrying about whether the picture will actually feel immersive for movie nights, or if the smart platform will be a hassle when you just want to hit play. If you're on the fence about a 48-inch OLED from Samsung, stick around. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about why the size matters. A 48-inch panel sits in that sweet spot between a bedroom-sized display and a full living room centerpiece. For most apartments or medium-sized rooms, it's large enough to make a cinematic impact without overwhelming the space. The OLED technology means each pixel can turn off completely, so you get those inky blacks that make dark scenes pop. In practice, that translates to a more convincing shadow detail when you're watching a thriller, or a richer contrast in a sports broadcast where the grass and sky need to be distinct. Now, the thing that trips a lot of buyers up is the upscaling promise. Samsung's NQ4 AI Gen 3 processor claims to handle 4K AI Upscaling Pro, which sounds like a fancy way of saying it makes lower resolution content look better. In my testing, the difference is most noticeable when you throw a classic Blu-ray that's only 1080p onto the screen. The AI algorithm smooths out the edges without over-sharpening, keeping motion fluid and keeping the artwork on the screen natural. If you're a gamer who spends a lot of time on older titles, that upscaling can actually reduce the blur you normally see on newer OLED models that rely heavily on native 4K sources. One practical point that people often overlook is the built-in Alexa. It's not just a gimmick, it works for voice controlling the TV, adjusting volume, or even dimming smart lights in the room. I've used it to pause a movie while the kids are running around, and the response was quick enough that I didn't have to fumble for the remote. However, keep in mind that the voice control is tied to Samsung's ecosystem, so if you have a lot of third-party smart devices, you might run into occasional hiccups where Alexa can't see a particular device. The smart platform itself runs on Samsung's Tizen OS, which is relatively smooth and loads apps like Netflix, Disney+, or YouTube in a snap. The downside? It's not as open as Android TV, so if you're hoping to sideload a niche streaming app, you'll hit a wall. For most mainstream services, though, the app selection feels comprehensive, and the UI is designed to keep your favorite apps on the home screen for quick access. Let's talk about real-world usage. I set this TV up in my home office for a mix of work and play. The first thing I noticed was the Xcelerator 144Hz handling fast-paced action without the typical trailing blur you see on lower refresh panels. When I'm watching esports or fast-cut editing videos, the motion feels crisp, which is a big win if you're into competitive gaming or need a clean picture for video editing previews. On the flip side, the 144Hz mode does consume a bit more power, and you'll see a slight uptick in fan noise from the TV's internal cooling system if you enable it for extended gaming sessions. It's not obnoxious, but it's something to be aware of if you're planning on a quiet bedroom setup. One hidden trade-off worth mentioning is the reflective coating on the screen. OLED panels tend to be glossy, which helps with color vibrancy, but it also means that bright windows or overhead lights can cause noticeable glare. I mounted the TV on a wall that faces a large window, and while I could adjust the picture settings to compensate, the glare was still present during midday. If you have a well-controlled lighting environment, you'll get the best picture. Otherwise, you might need to add curtains or a bias light to tame the reflections. Who should consider this TV? If you're a movie buff who loves deep blacks and want a TV that can handle both high-end 4K HDR content and older HD sources without looking cheap, the Samsung 48-inch OLED hits the mark. It's also a solid pick for gamers who value low input lag and high refresh rates, especially given the Xcelerator feature. Families that watch a lot of streaming content will enjoy the smart UI's ease of use, and the Alexa integration can simplify hands-free control. Who might want to skip it? If you're looking for a budget-friendly large screen for a bright living room, you might be better off with an LED model that has an anti-glare coating and a higher brightness ceiling. Also, if you rely heavily on niche streaming apps that aren't on Tizen, you could find yourself frustrated. Finally, those who want a TV to double as a primary.